Hello, and thank you for joining us for this edition of One Young World Together Apart series. My name is Jamira Burley, and I'm from the United States, and I am a proud One Young World ambassador. I am also an activist here in the U.S. working on issues of gun violence, criminal justice reform, and I'm the head of youth engagement and skills at the Global Business Coalition for Education, working with businesses, multilateral organizations, and young people to ensure that young people around the world have access to quality education wherever they are. Now, I'm sure you all recognize my guest here today, who many people would probably say needs no introduction, but he is an actor, a comedian, and an activist, and the former NFL player, Terry Crews. He had played alongside a long list of characters in major films and television programs, and he is also a public advocate for women's rights and an activist against sexism. As a One Young World 2018 summit in The Hague, he shared his personal story of abuse he endured in his family and the harassment he experienced in Hollywood. Now, we are here today to talk about how we can continue to stay optimistic in this time of the coronavirus and a global pandemic, and why not do it with a man who has made many people laugh, smile, but also be entertained in a time when we all could use a little bit of that in our lives. Thank you for joining us, Terry, and welcome to this series. And I'm curious, where are you in the world, and did you put on regular clothes for the first time today?
Yeah, no, I am at my home right now. This is my home office right here
Great
in Los
lighting,
Angeles.
by the way.
Yeah, I got my book thing. I worked on the lighting a lot, which is good. But yeah, I'm. You know, it's really good to be able to do this because I usually get suited up and I try to put on my best thing. But now it's like, hey, I got one of my favorite T-shirts on. I actually have house shoes on and jeans, and I feel like, oh, this is more relaxed. It feels good, and this is the new way of doing business. I love it.
Awesome. You're right. This is a new reality that we're all coping with. And as we've seen, many actors and activists and musicians, they've all taken to social media in many ways to make us laugh and help us to cope in times of uncertainty. What have you been doing to keep a smile on your face, but also keep a smile on the people who are closest to home?
Well, you know, it's funny because I've been doing a lot of TikToking.
Okay, I'll have to check out your TikTok after this.
And putting them out. My whole family, we did a little quarantine kind of TikTok that went viral. And I had one where I was showing people how to wash their hands to I Will Survive. And, you know, all these things. And also, which is really cool, I got with, I kind of re-upped my relationship with Old Spice, and we're putting together like public service announcements to really just get people to stay distant and to wash their hands and this whole thing. So that'll be coming out soon. But I just been doing this. I mean, literally talking to people, sharing my heart about this really, really difficult time, but also an opportunity. The phrase and the quote that I heard, and it's an anonymous quote, but I've been holding on to this forever, and it's really changed my perspective of this thing. And it says that sometimes our greatest hopes are destroyed to prepare us for something better. I'm gonna say that one more time. Sometimes our greatest hopes are destroyed to prepare us for something better. And of course, when we think about all the cancellations and the problems, people have been laid off, and there's so many problems that has come with this, not on top of the deaths from COVID-19 and, you know, just the risks that are you know, that involve this whole thing. I'm like, man, how can you find something good? How can this happen? But what I have to say is that when you look at this thing, there has never been a time in human history where we are actually forced to look at every person on earth as human beings. There's always been a time where someone has put themselves above another person, or we're not like them, the East versus West, North versus South, Black versus white. But now, in human history, we all as one world are forced to see ourselves as humanity, as one whole human being. And I go, look at the opportunity that this is right now. the fact that we can look at each other this way, and now you are forced to see the humanity in another person, because if you don't see the humanity in another person, that allows you to do any form of cruelty on another person. And that is the thing. The first thing they do is, if you want to inflict cruelty, is you take them out of the realm of humanity. You basically call them something else. You call women by this name, or you call blacks by that name, and you make sure that their humanity is stripped so you can do anything you want. But you now have to realize that we're all in this together. And I truly think something better is coming. The problem is we don't know, we can't define it, we can't, mark it, but something better, I believe, out of all of this is coming. This is a new evolution, and the young people of this generation now have a tremendous opportunity. You will be telling your grandkids you lived through COVID-19.
No, I think that's a really great point, because it reminds me that at a time where we oftentimes shame the hourly workers, right? The janitors, the nurses, the teachers. And this is a time where we realize how important those folks are to our society and how they enable each and every one of us to be able to show up and be able to fully participate. And now we're, to some extent, at the mercy, why we should appreciate these folks even more. So that's a really great point.
You're so right.
And I'm curious on that same note, right? Because as we're seeing folks kind of cope with events being canceled, opportunities going outside the waistline, and just so much of their income being impacted, their mental and physical health. I'm curious for you, as for folks who are home, who are by themselves, who are dealing with issues of mental health, what advice would you give folks for coping with that, or advice that you would give them to better manage that? For me, I got a dog. His name is Mickey, and he keeps me on my toes. So what recommendation would you give to those folks?
I think now more than ever, we have an opportunity to stay connected that our time has never seen before. I mean, the fact that we are talking around the world through Zoom, through social media, really never let yourself be alone. And I love the hashtag alone together, which is absolutely phenomenal, because this is the thing. When you are alone and you do feel alone and you do feel by yourself, this allows for what I call the spiral. But it's either the spiral downward, but when you get with people of like mind and people who encourage you, it becomes like an upward spiral of a tornado of wonderfulness. And you can go either way. I've been on both sides of those things. Yeah. And when I look at mental health, it's all about not being alone. It's literally, this is one reason why I've been very forthwith about my issues, the things that I went through with domestic violence, having to overcome pornography addiction, even having to overcome me being sexually assaulted, is so that people would not feel alone. Mm-hmm. And once the main thing, people came to me and they were like, hey, wait a minute, you had this issue too. You are on TV, you're doing all these things, but my goodness, the fact that you experienced the same thing I experienced, I'm not alone. And it's psychologically connecting, and it pulls us through. We need each other. We are all truly connected. And that's not hyperbole. That's not just a pie in the sky, nice thing to say. It's actually the truth.
So on that same note, and we do have a question here from one of our One Young World ambassadors from Malaysia, Dipes, and he brought to a question that's, I think, is really important. While all of us are connected in this struggle, right? While many of us can be vulnerable to Corona, we also recognize that this is bringing to light the inequalities, right? Everything from race to gender inequalities to access to healthcare. And I'm curious for you, as a Black man in America, do you think that this is a turning point for the U.S., that people are finally going to understand our need to make sure that folks who don't look like us, who don't come from our social economic background, still have access to the same resources and opportunities?
Oh, definitely, definitely. When you look at what was going on with the immigration crisis here in the United States, people were viewed as that's them and don't let them in, and we need to build a wall, and we need to keep them out. and this kind of thing. And these kinds of, but now when you realize, wait a minute, them is me. You know, right now, I'm in need. Right now, you know, when you see people all over the world who had to escape from injustices, escape from all kinds of tyranny, now we are fighting a common enemy, and now we are literally holding ourselves up and finding safety for ourselves. And that right there has always been a turning point, because when people are take these things and put it on themselves and start to see themselves through another person's eyes, which the term is called empathy. Mm-hmm. Empathy. What's happening is America is now empathizing with the rest of the world, and it's about time.
I agree. It's about time we, you know, recognize that we all have a responsibility to each other, not just ourselves. In that same vein, I mean, we all know that you have been an activist for women's rights. You've fought against issues related to sexism and harassment. We know at a time where all around the world, there are lockdowns, right? That folks are asked to stay indoors. And in that same vein, women and men are placed in very harmful situations. And I should say children too. What advice would you give for folks who are currently living in situations of domestic violence and are trying to cope as well as seek help at a time where so much of our focus is turned towards the health crisis of the moment?
This was one of my big concerns. So much so that actually later on today, I'm doing an Instagram Live with the author of a book called No Visible Bruises. And it talks all about how domestic violence has been basically, you know, going all through our culture. And one thing that I was concerned about, and I grew up in it, and I thought about when I was a kid at 5 years old, if I was quarantined with my father and my mother, it would not go well. And all I could think about was all the kids all around the world, the kids and women who are forced to be with their abusers, who are actually forced inside. And I said, we got to talk about this, because there are problems that are going to come from quarantining, as well as the problems that come from not quarantining. So my thing is, do I have a solution? This is what we're trying to find out, but we have to talk. We have to really figure out, hey, first of all, what avenues can people go to get help if you're quarantined with your abuser? And my thing is, by talking about it, we can actually get help by Zooming with other friends, and you can actually give signals to let people know that you need help, even when you have to mask those signals. My thing is, it's really a problem. It's already been a problem, which can really be not exacerbated by this situation right now. So I put on my Instagram, I have 6 million people on my Instagram, and I said, we got to talk about this today, because this is getting into the pivotal moments where people are getting very stressed, they're getting very angry, and they're together. And I said, let's bring it up. If you're having an issue, can we talk about it? Can you signal to someone out there that can help you? And hopefully, like I said, I don't have a solution at the moment, but if we talk about it, we can find one.
No, I agree. I think folks, we always say we should check on our weak friends, or whatever that really means, but I would say we should check on people who always appear to be strong, right? How are we checking in with folks that we know are in dangerous situations and figuring out what can we as individuals do, whether it's sharing information, sharing a hotline, flagging down police when possible. I really appreciate that point, because you're right. People are under insurmountable amounts of stress that unfortunately there doesn't seem to be kind of a light at the end of the tunnel just yet. So, you know, we could spend the next few minutes talking just doom and gloom, but I think it's also important to talk about and recognize that there are potential opportunities in times like this, right? We see the music industry, the entertainment industry, we see a number of different industries from tech, all kind of pulling back, shutting down doors to protect workers. But I'm curious for you, for someone who's already talking about that this is a new normal to some extent, and we need to look at other avenues to connect with folks. What are some of the opportunities you've seen that has transformed the work that you do that enables for you to still stay connected and entertain and connect with and relate to folks?
Well, I'm hosting America's Got Talent, and
Ah,
what we did, opened up was basically a way for you to audition from home.
that's cool.
And we're going to the judges and everybody's from Simon to Sophia and Heidi and Howie. We're all going to basically, get online through Zoom and basically do the show from there. And you can do your talent at home. And I thought, you know what, there's going to be some superstars that come out of this.
Yep.
You know what I mean? People who would have never got that chance, who never been that, couldn't take the trip to LA. They're going to be found out through this new media. And also when I joined in with D Nice's Club Quarantine. And let me tell you something, that was the world party of the century. I was there. He's like, hey, Terry. And then there's Michelle Obama there. There's Oprah there. There's Quincy Jones.
When have we ever been able to party with Michelle Obama? Well,
I was like, look, I had never been to a party with her until then. And I said, oh my God, look at, now D Nice is a superstar right now. I mean, he's really become a worldwide phenomenon. But I thought he's not the only one. There are a lot of people who now who probably would have never had this kind of opportunity and now are going to be thrown into the stratosphere. I think that, but I do think this though, we cannot do away with actual people. I mean, getting together, us, congregating, concerts, sports, it's got to come back. I mean, there's no way you're going to get rid of that. But at the same time, we can now pivot on a dime when we do need to socially distance. We will understand the importance of, okay, you know what? Sports are canceled today. You know what I mean? If we need these things to happen, it'll happen much faster and it'll be much safer for everyone in the whole world.
And it opens the door for folks who are disabled who normally wouldn't be able to participate in different forms of entertainment that society excluded them from. So that's a really great point. Okay, so I want to close with one more question. And the question is, you mentioned social media a number of times. I'm curious, what is one thing that you've come across in the last few days or weeks that have brought a smile to your face that you've seen on social media that we can all look forward to as we continue to interact and engage with folks?
Wow, there's so many great things. I've been just grabbing lives. I just been touching. When people are going live, I just hop in and the words of encouragement, the words of understanding. You know what I love? I was listening to LL Cool J talk to Sugar Ray Leonard, and Sugar Ray was like, I'm afraid, and I went, this is groundbreaking. Here's one of the most toughest boxers who ever lived. He was like, man, I am scared. And I said, man, this is what we need to see. This is the things that we were like, it's like a huge therapy session for everybody because his vulnerability actually is a groundbreaking event for someone who watched that. And I thought, you know what? It's not that we're all going to be tough and we're all making it out and stick your chin up. Some days it doesn't feel good. And some days we're just sad. And some days it sucks. And you know what? Being able to share that is just as important as encouraging someone. You know what I mean? Now it's a world. I think the social media right now is a worldwide therapy session. And I think it's beautiful.
I totally agree. I think folks are coming and showing up so much more authentically than they did previously, right? People have taken off the mask.
Right.
Some people are showing up with makeup.
Literally.
I mean, I have on workout pants underneath these, but we're not going to talk about that. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us for today's conversation. Can everyone please give a round of applause for Terry for joining this conversation? Again, I want to remind folks that the conversation doesn't end here. We need all of you to continue to connect with each other, share your story, be a part of the conversation, and continue to look out for more of these additions moving forward. Thanks again, Terry, for joining us, and I'll turn it back over to the one young.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.